Welcome back, and something a bit different this week. So I've done about 120 videos on the restoration of my 928. If you've not looked at those, please click the video button and you can go through all my previous ones and see how I got on. It's basically a wrecked 928 that I bought naively and then set about doggedly restoring it, and I get in a bit of trouble on the way because I'm no mechanic. This week what I want to do is take my 911 out. I've owned this for about 4 years and never talked about it, so we'll get it out on the road. I'll tell you what it is, drive it a bit, and just sort of tell you about my experiences with a 911, and then sort of sum up with what I think about them. So I've owned this car for about 4 years now. I bought it in the just when COVID was doing its thing. It's a 2002 911 Turbo, which means it's the 996 variant, so the unloved fried egg version. Although this does have the reworks or remodeled front lights that I actually really like. Leave me comments of your views on the lights. This is a slightly special version, so it's an X50 car, which means it has the performance upgrade fitted by Porsche. And it was crazy expensive. I can't remember how many thousands it was, but it was pretty significant. I have an original sales invoice for this car, and from memory it was something like £117,000 new, which just seems absurd now, especially, you know, back all that time ago. So the X50 pack achieves that extra power by swapping out the K16 turbos, which are the smaller ones, for the K24s, which are huge turbos. I'm guessing that's how many millimeters across they are, so it's quite a significant difference. And they swapped the standard intercoolers for GT2 intercoolers to provide more cool air, give you that extra power. And they probably did some ECU enhancements as well. I don't know about the ECU side of things. My car also has the what's called the Aerokit fitted, which is all the spoilers, has the huge wing on the back, huge big wing on the back. It has different side skirts and should have a different front lip. Now, and I thought it had the different front lip until I was talking to a friend who said, your front looks very different. And I remember now one of the previous owners swapped the front lip because it kept grazing on all of the speed humps and things that the UK is obsessed with. So mine has the standard turbo front lip. My car also had the wheels refurbished just before I bought it into like a slate grey, which actually looks really nice. The car's completely black then, it's in Basalt Black exterior with black leather and black wheels. The windows aren't black and I don't like that sort of thing, but I quite like how it looks, very menacing. Although I do think in certain colours the characteristics of the turbo show out a bit better. There's the side brakes in the rear bumper and the big sort of air intake on the side wing here just behind me. Maybe that looks better in something like a white or one of the lighter colours. Mine is also a manual car, which gives you that little bit more control over the power and the rev range and things, exactly what you're doing with it at all times. And I love it, I think it's fantastic. It's really something interesting to drive. You know, it's clearly all around performance. The handling, the acceleration, the braking, everything is just so sharp. I always like to let the turbos get up to temperature before sort of really pushing it hard. I think that's really important. And a little trick I use is to use the onboard computer to check the oil level. It has two constraints on it, that it has to be up to temperature and the vehicle has to be stopped. So if you try to check the oil while it's cold, it comes up and says the vehicle must be fully warmed up or something along those lines, and I know that it's not up to temperature. It's quite a good little trick actually to quickly tell whether we're warm. And the other side of things is I'm a real firm believer in letting the car cool down after you've driven it hard. Someone taught me that a long time ago. When I owned a Sierra Cosworth, they said you must let the turbos cool down after you've been sort of, you know, hammering it around, which is what those cars were for, unfortunately. Let the turbos cool down, let the oil circulate really well before shutting it off. Otherwise, you effectively boil the oil, which is really not good. I believe it crystallizes, and then you've got crystallized bits inside the bearings of the turbos, which you can imagine is not good. If you know about that, some more comments, please. That car has about 82,000 miles now, and the first portion of its life was very much main dealer. You know, it spent most of its servicing time in Porsche. I forget which one. I think it might be in Weybridge, one of the proper Porsche centres. All the work done under warranty. The owner at the time kept extending the Porsche warranty, so it had, I don't know, many years of the Porsche warranty work. And then from that point onwards, it's had independent Porsche specialists to look after it. Serviced every year, had the oil change and all the usual stuff. When I bought the car, there was quite a pronounced turbo whistle, which sounds really cool, but it is a sign of things to come, really, that something's not right. And I think after about 5 months of my ownership, that turbo, I'll call it a whine, not a whistle now, had increased to such a point that you could turn people's heads just by revving it, because there's this very pronounced sort of noise, which really, it sounded cool, but it really wasn't a good sign. So I wanted to do an oil change, so at the same time I thought I would replace some of the brackets that hold the rear exhaust on, because they'd rotted through, which is quite a common thing on these cars. And to replace the brackets, you have to remove the exhaust. So I took the exhaust system off, which is a weighty item, I tell you now. I took the exhaust off and noticed you can look into the turbos, which curiosity got the better of me, and I just spun the turbos by hand. Now one of them span really beautifully, and the other one was like grinding salt. It was really bad, really not happy at all. It wouldn't spin freely at all, which I kind of knew because of the whistle and whine that I was getting out of it, but I had no idea it would be that bad. So I had to swallow hard and decided to do a complete rebuild on the turbos and back. So I took the turbos off myself, being fairly capable nowadays, with all the work you see on my 928. I've learned how to use a spanner. So the turbos came off, went away to AET to be rebuilt. That cost about £2,000, about £1,000 per turbo, but they come back looking like new. And I replaced the oil lines that feed into them, which are a bit of a pig, but definitely worth doing. So with the new turbos back on, I swapped the exhaust system. The exhaust system was pretty tatty, and it weighs a metric ton. They are seriously heavy units. And I put on I think it's got a Top Gear stainless system, which it's got 200 catalytic converters on it, and it sounds pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with it. It's not an expensive system by any means. I think they retail for about £1,000, somewhere around there. But it does sound quite fruity. You get a nice burble on the way down. It added a little bit to the overall volume of the car. But when you're up the rev range, it does sound good. It sounds quite nice coming down the gears. Pretty pleased with it, and certainly for the cost and the weight saving. Wow. I think Top Gear quote a power increase around 20 horsepower because of the freer flowing nature of the exhaust, and I can't tell if that's true or false. The car's so quick you never really notice, to be honest. So and then part of finishing off that work, I put new injectors in. Oh, not coil packs actually, sorry. New coil packs, new spark plugs, and obviously naturally did the oil change. Right, the car's up to temperature, so let's extend its legs a little bit. surge of power when it comes on turbo is pretty impressive. It makes overtaking things pretty trivial. We've got a biker here, we have to give him a lot of room, but you get the impression, you get the idea. And it comes up to the legal limit pretty quick. I think Porsche quote around just under 4 seconds for 0 to 60 and 9 point something to the 100. UK has become obsessed with 20 mile an hour speed zones through pretty much any built up area at all. I don't need to tell you I was going over 20 then, so let's get right back down to it. 23, we can sit at 23. With speedo and accuracy, we're good to go. Bumpy road, so I won't go too quick along here. It's really hard to describe the power delivery because you put your foot down and it's a 3.6 litre engine, so it has power in its own right, so it starts to accelerate you, but then the turbos start to come in and you can see the boost gauge build. This will build up to about 1 bar, just under 0.9 most of the time. It really depends on the weather condition. But when the turbo comes in, it really shoves you in the back. You'll see my head, I'm struggling to hold my head up. It has an enormous amount of torque when it starts to cook. I get on a flat piece of road and we can open up a little bit more. I tend to early shift in this. I don't like taking it over about 4,500, 5,000 RPM. I don't think there's any need to sort of really ring it right round to the red line. In the turbo car, it tends to run out of breath. This doesn't really. It's certainly, maybe it does just a fraction. You hit around 6,000. But I don't see the benefit of taking it right out the rev range all the time. Give it a second gear pull here. think we got to that part of the video where I should tell you what I like and dislike about the car. So, likes first. I love 911s. I've always loved 911s, and to own one is just like a dream come true. About the actual experience itself, they're epically fast. I mean, they are really quick. So driving it is exhilarating. They're light, and with the engine out the back there, they handle amazing. You know, they're very pointy. I love the practicality of it. I know it sounds funny, but it's a car for all occasions. You know, you can throw 2 kids in the back, wife in the front, so you're 4 people. You've got space up the front there for some bags. Okay, it's not enormous, but it's big enough to get, you know, some stuff in. They're small, you can park them in town. It's a car for all weathers. It's really surprisingly useful. Value proposition. I mean, they're not particularly expensive for what you get for this level of performance. I haven't looked lately, but they're somewhere between 35 and 40,000, I guess, in the UK. To have that kind of performance is crazy value, I think. So, really like it, I think, to summarise. Dislikes then. First gear. You'll notice, I think I used first gear once in this video to pull away quickly. It's too aggressive in first gear. You go through it much too quickly, and I generally don't accelerate in it particularly hard at all, because if you do, it just whacks the revs around so quick and it feels like it's doing some damage to the car. It's really too aggressive. The interior, it is dated, you know, however, I quite like it. It's in great condition, but it is quite dated. It doesn't look quite as sharp as some of the newer 911s. And it's a little bit small. You know, if I said probably towards the beginning of this video, I'm about 6'2", and I just want the car, the seat, sorry, to go back a couple of notches more. 2 notches, I'd be absolutely fine. I could take the seat out and have a look, but I don't. So that's it really. Overall, an amazing car, fantastic value proposition, super practical. Yeah, well, wrap up there really. I hope you enjoyed it. As I always say at the end of all my other 9 to 8 videos, please click the like button, click subscribe, leave me comments. I love the comments, and I'll see you next time.